State of the Nation is an opinion-based program. The thoughts and opinions shared within this program are not intended to offend or disregard anyone's perspectives or beliefs. We aim to foster open dialogue, encourage critical thinking, and explore thought-provoking subjects. Recognizing the importance of diversity and inclusion, this program welcomes all viewpoints and cherishes the right to express them freely. This program also contains the opinions of the participants and does not reflect the views and beliefs of the Derana Media Network. The network believes in a safe space for all ideas to be expressed and on its duty to create such a platform for free speech. Viewer discretion is strictly advised.
Good evening. What is really the state of our nation? With monkeys responsible for power cuts, while claims of saving from the brink of bankruptcy within 2 months by the current government echoes, Sri Lankans continue to wonder when will there be a change in their own lives. With rice shortages, salt imports, coconut shortages, and other factors that really matters to everyday Sri Lankans still in limbo. The current government too has opted to go in the path of the IMF-said plans, diverting away from their election rhetoric. While the opposition at its lowest point in the history of our nation, can Sri Lanka really manage to come out of this hole it has dug itself into so that everyday Sri Lankans can thrive? Despite indicators of progress showcasing growth, the question remains to linger. Why are Sri Lankans continuing to lose in their quality of life? For opinions, insights, and analysis in this special presentation, I will speak to the Deputy Minister of Industry and Entrepreneurship Development, Chathuranga Abeysinghe, Leader of the Sarvajana Balaya, Opposition Parliamentarian Dilith Jayaweera, Opposition Parliamentarian from the Samagijana Balawege, Sujeewa Senasinghe, Opposition Parliamentarian from the Samagijana Balawege, Dr. Kavinda Jayawardena, Chief Executive Officer of Advocata, Dananath Fernando, Global Business Cycle Economist, Dr. Kenneth de Zilwa, Sri Lankan Tech Entrepreneur, Bhanuka Harishchandra, and Chairwoman of the Sri Lanka United National Businesses Alliance, Tanya Abeysinghe. Good evening. I'm Mahieash Johnney, and this is the State of the Nation.
This is another Derana special presentation on the 50th episode of State of the Nation, the economy, the politics, and the nation's path forward. Now, reporting live from Studio 24, here's Mahieash Johnney.
A very good evening, everyone. Welcome to our 50th episode and our special presentation of State of the Nation. Thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate your company. Soon, I'll be speaking to a whole lot of key individuals who are representing various parts of our society, the government, the opposition, the business sector, the economic theoretical sector, tech sector, and of course, people on the ground, as to find a real answer to this simple question. What is really the state of our nation? Now, if we cut across the island and stop by and speak to everyday Sri Lankans, I'm sure their views will be quite similar. Most will share their hopes of things becoming better under this new government as it's freshly given power. But most will for sure would say that they were better off before. Or we can point fingers, and of course in our nation's parliament the finger pointing occurs very vividly. What does the statistics say? Does it show that we are on the right path, or are we doing more of the same and expecting a different result? Well, let's get State of the Nation's Mahieash de Zilwa, who's our facts guy, who's standing by at the data board. Mahieash, good to see you, and welcome to our 50th program. I know you were here just for about a couple of programs, but welcome. Good to see you. Well, what does the data show? Honestly, what have you managed to uncover with regard to the real state of our nation, mainly in terms of our economy?
Yes, indeed, Mahieash. Just as well to any other country, economy has been a key factor in Sri Lanka's growth and development as well. So, Even though some austerity measures show growth, the question remains as to whether is it really the growth in the ground level of Sri Lanka.
According to the reports of the World Bank, the economy has stabilized, recording 4 quarters of growth after critical structural and policy reforms. However, the recovery remains fragile and is predicated on continued macroeconomic stability, a successful debt restructuring, and sustained structural reforms that can strengthen prospects for medium-term growth and poverty reduction. The economy grew by 5% in the first half of 2024 and external balances improved. Growth was driven by a rebound in the industrial sector as well as strong performances in tourism-related services sectors. Headline inflation remained in the low single digits throughout 2024. This allowed the further easing of monetary policy, which contributed to a decline in interest rates. There was a positive but weak growth in the credit to private sector. The current account strengthened, driven by the increased tourism receipts and remittances, whilst external debt servicing remained suspended. This contributed to an estimated balance of payment surplus and helped build usable official reserves to about 3 months of imports. While key reforms, including utility pricing adjustments, new revenue measures and debt restructuring restored macroeconomic stability, they imposed additional burdens on the poor. The crisis-induced poverty increased by 9.6 percentage points between 2019 and 2023. Of this, fiscal reforms related to indirect taxes, including the VAT, were particularly regressive and contributed to a poverty increase of 3.9 percentage points. Households' budgets have shrunk since 2019, leading to increases in malnutrition and child mortality. While inflation has eased since its peak in 2022, prices remain high and moderate food insecurity remains elevated at 23.7% in 2023. The effects of the crisis have been felt across the country and affected households not considered vulnerable before 2019. Poverty is projected to have tripled in urban areas. Notwithstanding a timid improvement in the first half of 2024, wages have contracted by 16.9% and 22% in the informal private and public sector, respectively, between July 2021 and 2024. Further, 17.3% of children under 5 years of age were underweight in July 2024, with rates as high as 24.7% in poorer districts like Numeralia, posing concerns over persisting structural inequalities. Stunting increased for children at all education levels between 2022 and 2023, and child mortality continued to increase in 2023. Moreover, according to the World Bank, the labour market has not recovered. Labour force participation continued to decline from 49.9% in the first quarter of 2023 to 47.1% in the first quarter of 2024 nationally, and from 32.7% to 29.6% among women. Therefore, while Sri Lanka's economy is growing on paper, for many, real growth remains out of reach. The challenge now is not just stabilizing the numbers, but ensuring that economic recovery reaches the people who need it the most.
Well, that's what facts and figures indicate about the real growth and the status quo of the economy of Sri Lanka. So that, I think, will be an interesting topic for an interesting conversation. Back to you, Mahieash.
Absolutely, Mihin. That's actually a good premise for the discussion that we are about to have in order to figure out what is going on in these sectors and how the government can actually change certain policies that will help our economy to grow. Well, let's leave it at that. That was Mihin Disaba at the data board. Thank you very much. Well, we are going to take a short break, and after that, my entire panel will be here live in the studio to discuss about ideas, exchange their thoughts on how Sri Lanka must progress. This is the State of the Nation, our 50th episode special live presentation. Back in a moment. Welcome back, everyone, to our 50th special of State of the Nation, where we are trying to give you an idea exactly where is our country heading. We did a lot of changes during the previous few months. Apparently, there's going to be another election that is going to come very soon as well. But then lots of things were said prior to the election, but then what's happening right now. In order to get an understanding of that, almost my guests are here. Prior to the break, I said everyone will be here at the moment, but apparently it's not. But let me introduce you the ones that we already have. If we start from, it is a big panel, to say, so to speak. This is the biggest we've assembled this time around, and Captain America is coming out today. So let me start off with Mr. Dananath Fernando. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Advocata Institute. He's also a founding member of the and former Chief Operating Officer at Advocata. Previously worked as an Associate Research Director at Breakthrough Business Alliance. Right next to him is another first in our program, Mr. Bhanuka Harishchandra, who is a self-taught entrepreneur and a founder of Surge Global. He's also the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Surge Global, specializing in digital consulting. Helps a lot of global business scales through marketing, data, and technology. Welcome to the program, Bhanuka. Good to see you, and thank you for being here. Right next to him is not a stranger, Dr. Kenneth Zilwa. The over 20 years of experience in investment banking. He's an expert in business cycle and real economics, and also is a global business cycle economist. Welcome back, Doctor, and also another face that we usually see here on the program on State of the Nation, Mrs. Tanya Abeysinghe. Welcome back. She is the chairwoman of Sri Lanka United National Businesses Alliances, and also is the founder of Senvi Collection, a leading Sri Lankan fashion and design group, and also advocates for local brand creation, reducing reliance on imports. And the next gentleman, well, no introduction is required, but apparently by my contract in this organization, I have to introduce him. Welcome back, Mr. Dilith Jayaweera, Parliamentarian, and of course, the founder, the leader of the Sarvajana Balaya and founding member of the Mahieash Johnney Party. He's now a Parliamentarian, very vocal, everybody knows him very well. Welcome back to the program, good to see you, sir, and thank you for taking the time. And also another first individual who's been here, Parliamentarian Sujeewa Senasinghe. Welcome to the program. Appreciate you being here and taking the time. He is from the Samagi Janapalaya Vege, representing this evening, and also he is the former Minister of Science, Technology and Research. Well, we are awaiting for the Minister. Minister Chathuranga Abeysinghe, the Deputy Minister of Industry and Entrepreneurship Development. We have been told that he will be on his way. And also Parliamentarian Kavinda, Dr. Kavinda Jayawardena. They will be here shortly, but before that, I want to start our conversation. So very quickly, if we just go around the panel and just ask, in terms of, let's start from you, Dananath. What's the state of our current nation, where we are? Where are we in terms of economics, and in your opinion?
Mahieash, thank you very much, first of all, for having me, and congratulations on the 50th State of the Nations program.
Been a hard ride, but here we are.
When it comes to the economy, compared to where we were, I think it's stable. When I mean stable, again, compared to where we were. And all the macroeconomic indicators, or all the main indicators, indicates the same, but it doesn't mean that we are out of the woods. The exchange rate is somewhat stable, and the inflation is coming down, and tourism, remittances are flowing in. So in that front, we are okay. But the challenge would be, we are in a little bit of a paradoxical situation, because the way out is to grow the economy.
Yeah.
To grow the economy, you have to have debt sustainability. At the same time, when you grow the economy, your imports are going to be higher, and that adds pressure on the currency on one front. And at the same time, there's less investment, because when you're coming out from a debt default, not many investors are willing to invest. So, of course, you need investment at the same time to grow the economy. So on one side, you have to grow the economy, but investment is restricting you. At the same time, you have some questions on the debt sustainability after a few years' time.
Exactly.
So we have to do everything at the same time. So that's why I said we are not still out of the woods.
We'll
but we are still
get into the details of it. If we go to Bhanuka, Bhanuka, you basically travel all over the world, speak to a lot of tech entrepreneurs around the world. Apparently, we're having a shortage of people coming here in terms of investing and all. So what exactly is the story in there? And in terms of your opinion, what is the state of our nation?
I think from a technology point of view, at least from a talent development point of view, we've done better over years. That being said, I think there's too much complexity around investing in Sri Lanka to even make it possible. I can share a whole bunch of real world examples where we say one thing, do the other, and the kind of the consequences of that is essentially we don't get the investment. And also, unfortunately, contrary to popular belief, we don't have that big of an edge to drive significant change to the economy through technology. Slightly controversial thing to say, but I think there are certain things that there are expectations that are not met. From the industry's point of view, from an infrastructure point of view primarily. And I think there is a long way ahead before Sri Lanka becomes kind of this technological epicenter. Yeah. We had a conference yesterday night where we brought in kind of key leaders in the education space in Australia. These are the leaders of the biggest university businesses. And we are convincing them to invest in technology here. And the entire conversation's around a monkey and a transformer. And unfortunately, until we cross that bridge, it's really hard to drive this sector in any way, shape or form.
Dr. Kenneth, even yesterday, the news came out saying that one of the biggest companies in the world, Adani, is pulling out from Sri Lanka purely because investing in Sri Lanka is really, cumbersome. So what is the state of our nation in your opinion right now?
Thank you, Mahieash. Congratulations on this great program that we are, I think, one of the only programs that has an alternative viewpoint for Sri Lanka. So it's excellent. Coming back to Dananath's analysis, I mean, clearly the way out of it, this whole situation is through growth. But unfortunately, the parameters of growth are not institutionalized. What I tell you is what Bhanuka is saying about investments, right? If you look at what the IMF has ring-fenced in ironclad hands, is that you can't get out of this. We don't have fiscal sovereignty, we don't have monetary sovereignty. Without these two variables, which are hugely dependent on what Bhanuka is saying in terms of investment, you can't think of growth. And that is clearly projected in the IMF projections. It says our GDP growth, which is in a balance sheet sense, because I like to talk in numbers where finance people can relate to this, because otherwise we are talking paradoxically, as Dananath said, and this paradox has led to us to misunderstand and misrepresent the facts relating to growth, particularly in the Sri Lankan context. Since 1965, we have been running this paradox. This paradox has been with the IMF institutionalizing certain framework where we can't get out of it. And every cycle, we get a 5-year cycle, we come out of it, we go back to it willingly. Similarly, we saw in 2019. Look at the 2019 numbers. In 2018, our GDP was $94 billion. Today, we are at $83 billion. So where is the improvement? None. Because GDP is nothing but your top-line revenue. In a company's income statement, your GDP at current market prices is your revenue. If your revenue is not growing, the underlying microeconomy cannot grow. That's a given. We saw that in 2016 to 2000. Many times you go back in history, you see the dip in your revenue numbers. A dip in the revenue is detrimental from any standpoint of view, and therefore to address investment, it's not foreign direct investment. We must look at domestic investment, because look at the capital formation numbers. No one is going through those numbers, unfortunately. Capital formation is bulk, domestic capital formation is bulk of it. 35% is domestic capital formation. 6 of it comes from public investment. Balance 2% comes, actually it's 30% in all, now it's about 37. If you take the aggregate numbers, about 27 is domestic capital formation. Government spending has been around 5, right? So that's 31. About 2%, 3% is from foreign direct investment. And for foreign direct investment, we are trying to turn this whole economy around and look at all the indexes as possible to generate this kind of FDI?
No, I think she's good with the mic. To ask you, Tanya, you are the chairwoman of the Sri Lanka United Businesses Alliance, which means you are one of the local investors that Dr. Kenneth is talking about to get you, basically interested in reinvesting here in Sri Lanka and not go abroad. For you, what is the state of the nation?
Thank you, Mahieash, for having me once again, and it's a pleasure being here. Absolutely, I really agree with Dr. Kenneth and what Dananath said as well, because these two are very key factors when it comes to, because I'm a local investor, I am a local manufacturer. So we always look at the bigger picture, not understanding the smaller picture. Like, we want big whales, but we forget the small fish in the sea. Because, a lot of small fish are better than one big whale. So we are the small fish in this pond. So why aren't we looked after? Because we are the local investment, we are the people who drive the economy through when the country fell. This is us. And why is always the stepmother treatment with any government? And so is the immediate government. They promise so much. Why are they delivering so less? And now they come and say, no, we are looking for global investment. First, look after what is in your kitty before you ask for land handouts. Absolutely. Why not protect us before trying to look for better? Grass is never green on the other side.
Exactly, that's
never.
the statement. For our viewers, when we told our guests, sit anywhere you like, apparently they've clumped all the investors on this side and the politician went on that side. And Mr. Dilith, you're right in the middle. You are crossing from business to politics, and basically now you're in Parliament. You are an investor, and you've been investing in many companies. This organization that we are just standing right now is one of your creations. Now you're going into politics. You hear what they're saying, and now you're at a place where the power is, I don't know whether is at the place where the power is being formulated and executed. But what is your opinion on this? When you hear this kinds of thought processes coming from the people who are really working on the ground, and here we have our policymakers on the other side, there is a mismatch. There is a mismatch, and the people who are in the policy sector, the policymakers, which is our lawmakers, they completely still keeps going on the same rotation of things, despite the fact that this election from the people was asking, please change. What is your opinion on that?
First of all, thank you, Mahieash, for having me. I would rather be on this side than this side. In my heart and soul, I'm on this side. Yeah. Actually, as Kenneth very, very nicely explained, this is the reality actually. I can only add a little more to what he was saying, taking the current state of the nation. Very thing that we miss out in this whole political dialogue, so to say, is this language and this kind of thinking. That is why, in fact, we say that this country needs this entrepreneurial state. The thinking, in fact, it is the mindset of the state and the government. When you don't look at it from an entrepreneurial perspective, you can't ever expect anything to grow. It encompasses, when you say entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial state, it may be a bit ambiguous, but it in fact says that think differently, think creatively, think with the numbers, be realistic. As he was saying, now we are talking of FDIs. It's no rocket science, and I'm still waiting for the minister to come.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, we haven't got a cent so far. We haven't signed a single agreement.
And yesterday, another one pulled out.
Yes. But if we are expecting anyone to come, then we are expecting quite a lot of idiots out in the world, it doesn't work like that. Why would anyone come to Sri Lanka? And as Tanya was saying, when our own local entrepreneurs are suffering in big numbers, like 250,000 of them have gone out of business.
300.
Yeah, now maybe 300,000. So it's a massive number, right? And these are the job creators in the country. They in fact change the rhythm of the nation. They bring color to the nation. It's not just the rupees and cents. You know, that the dynamism of the nation. So we have basically killed all of that, and we are in the process of killing the rest also with this kind of mindset. And Bhanuka was saying that's the truth, right? Now, if we are to change that, it's maybe after the rest of the people can start contributing, we can get into that. But I can say as a preamble to this, what we need is this kind of thinking. As he was trying to say, that if you don't understand these three things, the P&L and the balance sheet, or P&L, balance sheet and the cash flows, and if we don't use this lingo in our day-to-day language, I mean, I am sorry to say, I am a parliamentarian, but it's sad to see that I can't see a single face when I sit on this side, when I'm looking at the government side, or anyone for that matter, whom I can have this chat with. I'm telling you with responsibility, and I don't try to look down upon anyone. But the thing is, if we don't get into this serious conversation and with this kind of logical, scientific, numerical, this kind of dialogue, we can talk rhetoric, we can talk anything, but we are not moving forward. In fact, we will moving backwards in an unexpected speed. So, Johnny, you have lot of hard work.
No. Nobody voted for me. Everybody voted for you. It's not.
No, I'm saying changing the mindset of the people.
Absolutely. No, I understand what you're saying, and this entire exercise is one of that. I mean, for us to bring, you all know, you all are from various sectors of your thinking process, but yet for you all to willing to sit down and have a conversation about it, showcases that you absolutely care about this country and you want to see our country progress. Parliamentarian Sujeewa Senasinghe, you've been in politics for quite some time, and you were the former Minister of Science, Technology and Research, and these guys are asking the scientific thinking needs to come into the practical sense of things. And we've been talking about this scientifical approach, but we never see them when it comes to from our lawmakers or anything. What is your opinion? What is your take on the state of the nation?
I prefer Dilith was on my side now, but I think I'm by myself taking on about 5 people from the other side. But I would agree with them. So once listening to them, what I realized, I was the international trade minister as well. And we worked with them actually for the national export strategy. We worked along with the business and the economists and so forth. And we formulated a very good plan. Can you stay in power by doing that? So we stayed for about 3-4 years, and the government changed. The people wanted something else, and then, as he said, now do you have that talent in the ministries to run the country as they expected? I know it's a technical issue. They were talking about the monetary policy and the fiscal policy. Let's say we get it right, then the rest. How do you then run the rest of the economy? As Dananath said, we were in a very bad situation. Indicators show that we are okay, but we haven't started paying our debt. So unless we start growth, so it may be foreign investment, it may be local investments. Since I am on this side, we have been meeting with the entrepreneurs, and we have been talking about their debt problem as well. And last week, actually, I was accidentally I was there, I was not in that committee, with the central bank governor. So they showed, we came out of this crisis with the help of the entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They paid 30%, 25% interest rate they paid. So I asked the governor, so since they got us out of this problem, isn't it fair for us to give them a small push? Yeah. But he said, yeah, definitely yes, but it's not easy as you suggest, because who's going to pay if the debt that they have accumulated over the past 2 years, 30%, they must have paid about 100, 150, 300% maybe.
Paid more than what he acquired from
A lot more.
Lot more.
So what he was saying, but there are 50% of the nation who are struggling to survive. And how are we going to kind of give them the small push for them to carry on with the normal day-to-day life? It's true, the business crowd is really struggling. At the same time, the poor is struggling
Even worse.
as you showed in your indicators, 45,000 rupees salary.
Yeah.
And the inflation is 1 or 2% at the moment, but it has risen to about how much? 300%, 400%.
70%.
Yeah, so it has gone up, skyrocketed, and we are in a very bad situation. So to come out of the situation, you need a talented leader, dynamic leader, who will understand the, as he said, experience. And do you have the experience? Do you have the business experience? Do you have the economic experience? So without the experience, from the top to the rest of the ministries, I don't see anything happening in the ministries. They are just, as when I spoke to the governor also, what he said, the monetary policy, the independent monetary policy which they have proposed, the results will take about 18 months to 24 months. So what is at the moment is the policies which have been taken about 16 to 18 months before. So they are showing the growth and saying we are done well. It's not they have done well. Whatever, I don't know whether they have done well or not, but this is all results of about 14 and 15 months decisions which have been taken. The real results will come, but they have taken in another 14 to 15 months. Then I'm not sure where we will, because we have not started paying debt. It's going to be about $5 billion, I hear. This year we have to end up paying.
Can you shed a little bit of light on that? Now all the indicators are, this is my argument has always been, in paper we're good, but then the common man goes to the grocery shop, he does not have things to pay. The amount, the bag that he can carry for the same amount that he is getting, like 45,000 rupee salary. The salary hasn't increased, but the prices have increased. So where is the mismatch? Who's actually telling the truth?
I think it's both sides are right, Mahieash, because the economy stabilizes doesn't mean the prices are going to come down. Because when you hit the 60%, 70% inflation stretch, the prices have already significantly higher now. And it won't come down. It will come down on certain product categories. But overall, the prices are at a very high level. It's like we are moving in an elevator. Your prices at the ground, earlier you were at the ground floor, and your entire system has now moved to the first level. Now, it won't come down drastically again. You are just moving up. What needs to happen is the salaries are coming on the staircase. Yeah. You have moved on the elevator, your price levels, the salaries has to slowly catch up. And that's where the discrepancy the people see, because on the indicator, as you very correctly said, people say, okay, the economy has stabilized, exchange rate is stable, it's deflation, inflation is stable. But when you go to the supermarket or the grocery shop, prices are high. Because prices moved in the elevator. Your salaries are coming down on the staircase. So that's the discrepancy. But adding on to what Dr. Kenneth and Dilith said, I think definitely the way out is the local entrepreneurs, and with Tanya has to step up. But let's understand the problem. Most of the resources of the local entrepreneurs, including Bhanukas, are taken by the government.
Absolutely.
82% of the land is owned by the government, including the road and the forest thing. And entrepreneurs like Bhanuka going from roof to roof, finding the solar assets. Let's look at the labor, because ultimately any entrepreneur has 4 factors to work with: land, capital, labor, entrepreneurship. Yeah. Let's look at the labor, it's the same problem. Let's look at the capital, it's the same problem. So my argument is, it has been restricted by the government. And I agree with Dilith that it has to be the entrepreneurial state. But entrepreneurs like Dilith and Bhanuka and everyone will come with the risk factors. They are successful because the ultimate definition of an entrepreneur is they are taking the risk of their reputation, time, and money. And unfortunately, the government has taken all the resources, and that's why they are struggling. And the cry that you hear is cannot be seen at the surface level, but it's at the deep level.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you one question? Being a keen follower of Dananath, I always want to ask you this. I see this on your YouTube interviews. This inflation thing. What I learned in school and in the university, this inflation calculation. I just still don't understand how this thing works. Now see, in 2022, if you look at every essential item, including the electricity, water, fuel, so these have gone up by like 100%, 150%, gas, everything. And the essentials also, they have all gone up. And salaries technically have gone down. If by way of taxation, they have taken a large chunk of our consumable income. And they say that inflation is going down. It has gone down a bit one day. They say it's gone down by another few points. And how do you? I mean, I'm not a. You know that I'm not a believer of economics. You know, I think it's. It's really not my trip. You know, I don't want to get into that. But whatever it is, it could be like some religion or something. Let's say, however. Now, can you, like mythology, I would say, but Dananath, can you please tell me, now see, I can't actually, in my own real world calculation, these people, quality of life or the standards should have technically come down by minimum 75%. If you put, the salaries have not gone up. Taxes have gone up. As a result, your income has shrunk, and all the other essentials. I'm not talking about this. You know, the other goods.
Not the luxuries.
Or other things.
The basic necessities.
How can you explain in your so-called economic terms, as like an economist, I would say, how do you explain this?
I'll give you
Before that, I'm really sorry that I have to, interrupt, because we have the two other guests in as well, so we want to get them in. For that, let's take a short commercial break. Right after the break, we'll be back with the Minister, along with Dr. Kavinda Jayawardena, and we will have the full panel, and all of you all can go at each other at your will. So, but before that, let's take a short commercial break. This is our 50th episode special of State of the Nation. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our special presentation, the 50th episode special presentation of State of the Nation. Our whole panel is in. I want to welcome to the program Minister Chathuranga Abeysinghe, first time coming on the show. Thank you very much for being here. He's the Deputy Minister of Industry and Entrepreneurship Development, and also a Parliamentarian since last year, I believe. And he's a chartered global management accountant and also holds a degree from the Sri Jayawardena University, and also Parliamentarian Dr. Kavinda Jayawardena. Welcome to the program, first time as well. Good to see you. He's representing the Sarvajana Balaya, and also former Western Provincial Councillor as well. So I don't know, I think you all were waiting to get in before the break, and you all basically heard the conversation that this was going on. But before that, I want to go to Dananath. Dananath had a question from Dilith, and apparently I'm sure you are eager to answer that.
I'll try to explain it without an economics example, because I'm also coming from a similar background like you. I haven't studied economics in any formal setup, so I'll give it a try at it. Imagine you are traveling from Colombo to Gobal. You start the engine, the speedometer is at 0. Then you accelerate, it goes to 60. And then you stop at Gobal, the speedometer comes back to 0. Now, if you think the inflation is that 60. That's the that's the speed of the vehicle. So the inflation is basically the acceleration of the prices. Now, just because your speedometer is 0, when you get down from the vehicle, you are not in Colombo. You are in Gaul. Because at 60, your price level has come from Colombo to Gaul. So that's what inflation means. That's why the prices, just because the inflation is 0, because when you stop in Gaul, your speedometer is 0. But you have moved about 100 kilometers because your prices went up at 60 rate. The question is, what drives the prices? Like what causes the acceleration? I think that's where Dr. Kenneth and I would probably disagree.
Not only
and that is the additional supply of money. And the inflation means the rate that the prices go up. And when the rate is 0, doesn't mean that you're coming back to the same position as to Colombo. You have moved far away and now you're in Gaul. And that's why you see the same thing. The misery is in Colombo because people, their income is at Colombo level, but the price levels have moved up to Gaul, so they have to catch up.
Just to kind of add a little bit to what Dananath says, because I feel like he's going to get cornered here, and I prescribe to the same theories that he does. Inflation is fundamentally a certain quantum of capital chasing a certain quantum of goods. As capital increases in circulation, then money, supply or velocity. So it depends.
Supply
if you're going to modern
demand.
If we are
Doctor,
if we go down modern monetary theory and then look at the velocity of money, different conversation. But to kind of summarize what he said, right? If you take, for example, Japan, the lost decade of negative inflation, I feel like we'll need 3 mics.
No, I mean, let him answer after that.
But essentially, we haven't had a deflationary environment for prices to drop. If inflation today, like right now, it's at a low single digit. Not year to date. Yeah. I mean, they just said single digit, low single, but regardless of who you take as the number, until there is a material deflation, prices should not move down.
Doctor, you can respond.
So Dilith's question and Dananath's answer doesn't tally. Again, we are coming to paradoxes which Dananath is referring to and which he alluded to in his earlier conversation. Inflation primarily is driven in Sri Lanka by its consumer basket, right? If you look at the index, there is a huge weightage in this index on consumer items. Now, in these consumer items, there is a huge weightage on import-driven consumer items. That is pegged to the exchange rate, including of inputs on agriculture, right? If you look at our agriculture from seeds to fertilizer to the transportation, 60% of our cost is import-driven. Only there is a 30 to 40% value addition from agriculture. I got these numbers from the agricultural people. It's about talking to them. So when you have an inflation anchor by the way of the exchange rate and that moves and you let that go, that's what the IMF prescribed. One of the key criteria in every IMF mission is to let your exchange rate free float. Now the drag on that particular thought process is huge, not only to the inflation basket, but to your debt also. And I'll come to the capital side of it, right? Debt, because we have got 2 balance sheets in the country. One, we have got a dollar balance sheet, we have got a rupee balance sheet, right? And your liabilities are all marked in dollars because you've got $38 billion in external debt, out of which only 14 billion is commercial debt. Balance 24 is multilateral and bilateral debt, right? So that dollar-denominated balance sheet, it has a direct impact, and that is shown in the central bank annual report. No one reads it. It's shown in the Ministry of Finance. I urge Dananath to look at it, right? They don't do it. They come and use parables in the general media, and therefore this misleads the general public. Look at give me one more minute, Mahieash. It's important. The cost of debt has increased from the government's balance sheet by 5 trillion. 5 trillion. The loss to CPC As a result of the exchange rate loss, it's shown as operational loss. It mentions in the Minister of Finance annual report. I urge Minister to look at it. It's not mentioned because they cover their sins in this thing, and it's passed on to the general public and to the entrepreneurs. The cost of debt servicing has increased by 500 billion. CPC, because they have $3 billion worth of external debt. Their balance sheet is in rupees. How can they generate income? They can't when suddenly the government takes a decision. So give me your last minute. 890 billion worth of shock in terms of debt servicing on the SOE balance sheets, including CEB, Petroleum, Sri Lankan Airlines. CEB 600 billion, CEB 200 billion, CPC 590 billion, and Sri Lankan Airlines 100 billion. Put that into your debt stock. Put that into the debt servicing. Then you look at the ratio. Our debt to GDP increased from 101 billion to 104 billion in 1 year. We are getting 2.9 billion from the IMF. Now this is the madness.
No, I understand.
I need to add to what
just give me 1 second.
This is very important. What the government did was, just to control the inflation, they suppressed the economy totally. So by doing that, who was hit? The entrepreneurs in this country. Who was facilitating the governments? That is what happened too. Suppressing
story about money writing
economy won't.
Just give me. We have time to talk about it, but I want to get a response from the minister. Now, one of the things that was discussed prior here, and you can basically look at it as well, is in order to get out of this current situation, minister, is basically bringing in growth. Now, they were all of us, all the parliamentarians, most of the people were talking about foreign direct investments, but not taking care of the local guys. The local guys are penalized to the maximum, but then again, we are trying to talk about foreign direct investments. Now, you are the minister in that particular portfolio. So, in a situation like that, when none of the foreign direct investments are coming into the country at the moment, also yesterday we heard Adani is pulling out with the projects and all. In a situation like that, why not focus on the local guys and to push them up? And what exactly is the government trying to do about that?
I think I was listening to the entire conversation. So we are I think we are trying to talk about the current situation without context. Even Mr. Dilith Jayaweera said that there is no brains in the government. Just because there was no brains in the entire 40 years of the history, we came to this situation. So we are now debating how to get out of the situation. So as Dr. Kenneth said, it's very clear. When we had a supply side push inflation, we treated the demand side treatment. That is the chaos that it has created. But again, at the end of the day, there is some level of stability and there is some level of global acceptance with the debt restructuring and the program. So that is why the government is now keen to continue with the program, because we have stability. What
kind of stability is that? Is that just a fake stability?
It is not. It is very much a great stability that we have, because we all know the people, the public, started suffering not only today, for the last 3 years, and they are coming out of it. And when it comes to the SME sector, they fell flat and they have to come out of it. So that's the mandate of the government, new government, to take decisions and strategies to ensure the livelihood of the people are balanced off or brought up, as well as the SME sector. That's our game plan. But what we need to understand was what was done in order to get a stability from an external perspective. The entire game plan was to save the ISB holders, right? So because the ISBs were given, I think SJB and UMP-led government took 12.3 billion ISBs from 2015 to 2019. And I don't know whether discussions like this happen, talking about a debt sustainability at that point. Even that discussion was not there, right? I am still struggling to get data from the Parliament research to see whether that 12.3 billion was used to actually repay the loans, because there was no loan repayments at that time.
It was said at that time, I still remember.
You're right, because actually the exchange rate loss is covered by that debt repayment. You're absolutely right. It's same this year.
No, because it was said to the public, it was taken to pay off the previous debt, which is absolutely false. I am looking for data to prove it in the parliament, right? Now, what we have to do, if you really look at and also, most of the people, I would say, even the businessmen, they were not on streets when the Central Bank Act was brought in. They said, let Central Bank be independent. And we were the ones who were fighting against it. We were the only party who voted against it. Now the Central Bank is saying, my mandate is to control inflation. Sri Lankan inflation is not driven by demand. Sri Lankan inflation is driven by supply. We asked the governor last time at the COF, I asked personally, what is the power Central Bank now has through monetary policy to bring back the inflation to 5%, which is the planned amount. Now there is a mandate given to the Central Bank to manage the inflation at 5 to 3%. And if they deviate from that, they have to be accountable to the Parliament. And they have no clue how to bring it back to 5%, because they only have one tool, which is called interest rate. Now the interest rate is low as 7%. Now how far it can go again? Because nothing is going to change anything in this country, because it's not a demand side problem we have. So the government is now focusing on supply side, where for the first time in the history for the last 5 years, we are going to spend 1.3 trillion as government expenditure, as capital.
Dollars or
rupees?
Okay.
Capital expenditure, right? So the first time that a huge boost is going to come into the economy to boost the entire growth plan, because even in school, we learned if you want to bring growth, right? If you now, you said about contraction, now we need expansionary policy. Expansionary policy is coming through government now with a restriction of not printing money. So whatever the limit that we have a limit very clearly given. We have to have 2.3 positive balance in the primary, and we have to collect 15.1% of taxes, and we have the ability to spend 13% of the GDP. Just let me finish quickly. So what I'm trying to say is, government has a clear strategy to grow 6 or 7 industries which we have figured out, and the investment is on the people and SMEs, and that will be seen this 17th, and we can discuss more about it.
Dr. Kavinda, Jayawardena, do you agree with this assessment, saying that the government is saying that apparently they have a game plan, and apparently they can basically get us out of this particular crisis situation that all of these individuals on this side of the panel is talking about? Do you see, sitting in the opposition, is that something that you all agree with or disagree with?
First and foremost, Mahieash, thank you very much for inviting me, and sorry for the delay. No monkey came across me. Just
Valentine's
my
Day,
fault.
I presume.
So actually, Mahieash, I think what's important is that we have understood the problem. Everyone in this panel, we spoke about the problems that the country is facing. What's important is now we have to think about the solutions, right? One of the main assets that we have in Sri Lanka is we have 70% of literacy rate. Our human resource is one of the main assets that we have. The question is whether the government is ready to invest in our education system. Example, now what we need is, if we want more investments to come to Sri Lanka, and if we are ready to accommodate such investments, we have to have the trust of the people. So what I see is that if we can be an educational hub where we educate our children, and that will lead this country forward. Example, now we are talking about education, but whether the government is ready for private universities like private medical colleges to come up, invest here, where foreign students could come here and study, and even the Sri Lankan students get the opportunity to study here, rather than going out of the country. We have around 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 medical students who are going out of the country, and we are losing money. You were talking about dollar exchange rate. I mean, one of the main reason is our students, hundreds and thousands of students going out of the country, and millions of dollars, please let me speak. Yeah. Millions of dollars going out of the country, right? If we could accommodate for our children to study in this country and foreign students to come to our country and study, I'm talking about one sector here, right? We are talking about millions of rupees and millions of dollars, right? So Mahieash, I think the government should open their eyes, right? Broaden their policy in education and open up foreign students to come to Sri Lanka, and likewise the Sri Lankan students to study here. So we could save our money in this country. And as Tanya very clearly said, we have to support the local investors. We have to safeguard our local investors. So I don't know what's the plan that the government has got to safeguard the local investors, because if we are not going to safeguard this local investors, I don't think none of the foreign investors would be have the confidence to come to Sri Lanka and invest.
So, can I make a small comment?
I heard these few things. Now, we talked about this safeguarding the local investors. Can we elaborate by each one? What do you really mean to safeguard? Do you mean tariff barriers for imports? Do you mean giving loans? Do you mean cutting off loans? Let's elaborate that, because it's a good discussion to have.
I don't think you need to safeguard local investors.
Yeah.
I think we need to understand that there is fundamentally, these are all what we're talking about are symptomatic issues. The reason whether the investment is foreign, direct or local is less to do with the fact that there is a special benefit or anything. It's to do with the fact that underlying issue Sri Lanka has, we don't have policy stability.
Yeah.
Every week, the policy around whatever subject changes. We change our policy on VAT, we change our policy on tax, whether it's personal, corporate, we change everything. We were talking about the energy business that we were launching. The tariff rate of a project has changed about 3 times over the last 12 months. There is no way for a business, regardless, investors are investing.
Bhanuka, in fact, that is what I think the answer that we should give him. We have to be safeguarded. We as the entrepreneurs have to be safeguarded from this only.
Yes.
We are not saying safeguard us from any other thing.
As an entrepreneur,
No, not hands out.
The simple fact is you can't. Even if they want to, they can't, because they have got a fiscal target as per the IMF. Remember that. You've got 15% of revenue collection, you've got a surplus, you've got a primary surplus. That is excluding interest payments.
Kenneth, I understand. But philosophically speaking, technically speaking, we have to.
You have to.
So when he is asking this question, elaborate what it means.
The question, what we need. So
what we have to say is whether it's possible or not is a different matter.
Yes.
Whether there is IMF,
a
different matter.
What IMF is saying is right. So let's say
IMF is always put forward as the monster.
Before we go at 6:30, I think that's great.
And the other thing is, I don't think as an entrepreneur, founder, or business owner, there is no expectation that everything will be constant and stable. I think we would like the philosophical understanding that at least you're batting on the same side, and that we have an understanding that the expectation from government, the expectation for the people and the businesses is that even if we do not have price stability or policy stability today, we are driving towards that stability, right? And the problem is, the thing about stability is you can't say that we will give you stability, you have to show it. The reason why businesses like countries like Singapore did really well in terms of foreign direct investment is they haven't changed their policies in the last 20 years.
Absolutely.
And even India.
No, and can I answer to whatever you asked? Now, what we are, we as entrepreneurs, I have been representing the SMV for the last 4 years, and we voiced out so much of our issues. What we want is not hands out. We never asked. And we have never asked any government for protection. We have only asked all the government is to stabilizing the policies. Like he said, end of the day, we are being hit due to government decisions taken on favor of the other country. Now, we have FTAs with Taiwan. then we have Thailand, we have FTAs with India, now with China. So all of these FTAs are never in favor of us. It's always in favor of the country on the other side, because their industries are protected, our industries are never been protected, and we are the ones who are invested heavily, and we are the ones who have been marked on.
Let's take a stop
government
here.
mark.
Now, Tanya, now you clearly said about the agreements. That is why we came into power also, because Indian agreement is not in favor of us. And we had 2 agreements with Bangladesh and Pakistan, no use to us. Then the Thailand and the Singapore and the other one, nobody was consulted. It was just brought in, and the Singapore is running through. Nothing has changed. We have a negative balance from Singapore. 1 billion we import, nothing we send to Singapore. FTAs, we need to be carefully evaluate and renegotiate for better deal. That is this government's policy. But whether it could be done in 4 months, it's not something that, but has to be done, we can agree. But let's hear from the audience, do we really need to look at the FTAs as a country?
Before that, let me speak to Dilith. Dilith, now you asked a question prior. You asked the question of this mismatch. Here these guys are talking about theoretical stuff, and here we are talking about the practical side of things. You're sitting in the middle, and you have been in both sides of things. Did you hear a solution in this from either whether it is a theoretical side of things, whether it's the entrepreneurial side of things, from the government? The government is saying the government was brought into power not to do the same thing that was done for the past 75 years. They say they have a game plan, all that. So seated right there in the middle, what exactly do you see? Do you see us coming out? Because there's no point in going for another 75 and talking like, you know, developing country, aka Sri Lanka.
Mahieash, it's like this. See, this is the shift that we would talk. I mean, as Kenneth was trying to say, and then let's be practical. We don't, no point talking about actually. Prana's answer is beautiful, and he comes out to be a very attractive analogy. But practically speaking, it's completely something different what is happening on ground. But the thing is, now the 75 or 76 years of curse.
77 now.
77 years of, no, 77 they can't say. 70. So whatever, see, in practical world, it's sunk cost. Forget the past. In our language, we don't even talk about it. You know, if I buy a company and someone has, mucked up the whole thing, and we don't want to talk about it, because it doesn't give you any happiness to you, and you want to move forward. So if you have to move forward, you can learn from the past. So then you have to say, okay, this is the strategic shift that we are taking, and it has to be a massive shift. It can't be like a tinkering job. It has to, what is that shift? So if we are to move forward, if we have a growth trajectory and a growth plan, okay, we are taking this massive shift, which is different to the 76 years of whatever they have done. I don't propagate to, or I don't agree with that, the 76-year curse. It's a different discussion altogether. However, what is that shift? I mean, if you are saying, okay, we know that we are going to really take it to the next level, by doing what? What is the theory? What is the model? Yeah, we can call it even the business model. What is it? So that's my question. In fact, I'm the Chathuranga. I in fact didn't mean by any means to say that the parliamentarians on your side don't have brains.
You said
they have all our brainy people.
No, you said they don't know numbers. They don't know strategy. They don't know P&L. They don't know cash flow.
I said
you said that
in a context. I said in a context. See your father being a. I mean, I know him very well. That he is a very clever guy. For its relevant field, for sure.
Yeah.
But then, of course, maybe lots of people who are my friends, maybe in their own, yes, for sure. But this running.
You basically saying Anura Kumar Disandayaka doesn't understand numbers. Harsha Surya Peruma doesn't understand numbers. Anil Jayanta doesn't understand.
I don't want to.
Is that what you're saying?
No,
I really want to understand because you.
Yeah. For you to understand, I would put it this way. I would put it this way. I really don't want to. I don't want to put it in that manner. That is why I said I am not looking down upon them because I consider them to be brilliant in their own respective fields. Example, Andhra Kumar, my old friend, I mean, he's a great politician. So we have to appreciate that. But if you are to run this government and you have taken a product which in your own definition, it's a already ruined product.
Yep.
So you are now going to take it to the next level.
Yep.
Right? I am saying in that context, if you don't understand the real world practical terms, I mean, if you are talking about today, I am going to say now example, sorry to say that, I mean, now that you ask me, when you take your policy document, which we put forward during the election, now you can see most of those things cannot be practically delivered.
Everything can be delivered.
Now, example I take that you are not delivering.
Tell me one.
Which is something very, very sensitive to the Sri Lankan people and to me also. Now, see, you promised that all the kids in this country will get VAT exempted, VAT free educational goods.
Yeah.
Now you are saying you can't do it. Instead, you give 6,000 rupees to the underprivileged people. Now you are doing in your 76 years so-called curse. Even Jayawardena, who your great leaders and myself thought we were to kill that leader Jayawardena, even in his the project of free books, he said free books to all.
Yeah.
The rich or poor.
Sure.
Now you are telling someone in a classroom to bring a letter from Grama Sevaka saying that you can't afford, you are poor, give me 6,000 rupees. Now you make a major division in that kid's mind. That's a terrible thing. So I'm taking this as an example. You promised that you are going to take this VAT off, right? Had you had an understanding of a P&L, as we say, there is no top line and you can't spend. If you are going to say, okay, I'm going to take this off, I am going to add this from the top. So that is why I'm saying, I'm taking this simple example. You are saying everything is possible. If everything is possible, we should be able to see it happening.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen because at the time you promised, I don't know, I mean, with great respect to whoever who has contributed to that book, I see lots of contradictions. And I see it from I'm not from like a narrow political perspective to say, these guys didn't know. I'm saying it has no logic. It has no philosophy. So when you don't have that, so I am forced to think, why you say so? You are saying, now example, the interest-free loans, the
collateral-free loans.
The collateral-free loans. I mean, it doesn't exist in the world.
It exists in every country.
I mean, if you are...
That's not true. It exists in every country.
No, wait, let me see it.
No.
Collateral-free...
Well, can you do it practically?
Yeah, collateral-free, I know what Bhanuka is going to say. Collateral-free does not necessarily mean it's free like handouts.
No,
it doesn't work like that. So if you are trying to say that, okay, collateral free, it's let's say you can take some example. I know that you're going to take this example. We can take these examples, but why we can't do it here? I will come to that if you really if you have time. But forget that. What I'm trying to say, forget collateral free. So these entrepreneurs went and asked. Now you have given us a moratorium, and we have gone and given our assets.
The banks.
Banks.
Yeah, of course. Not the government.
Who the
banks.
Banks are all the government. We are all part of.
No.
Government is responsible for all of us. I mean, the bank.
That's why I said.
Banks are. You can't say. You can't say banks. Let's say then take the government bank.
That's why I said when the central bank was made independent, Did we fight like this?
Of course, I fought.
Of course, yes.
I fought. We all fought. It's not just you
really
and
fought
you
it.
3 people who voted against. There were many people who voted
Can't you
against.
reverse it if you want now? The two-thirds can't you reverse it?
Yeah, we can reverse
Now
that.
they
Yeah.
have the mandate to
You have the
reverse.
mandate.
Criticize.
Now
You
we
have
can have
you
the
are not
mandate.
2/3. You are 100%.
Yeah, now
With
we
our
can
support.
reverse.
Yeah. So
Chathuranga.
let's do that
Chathuranga,
and then move forward.
next session that we
Because
can
no point
bring in.
criticizing and doing the
So
same
no. Chathuranga, let's not actually his 50th program.
No, this
So
is
he's having fun.
Why do you think I'm keeping
So
quiet?
Chathuranga, I like to think, I don't want to get into this conventional political conversation, which I don't like. But what I try to say, Chathuranga, we all like to see this country doing well.
Yeah.
It is not for, in my case, of course, I don't belong to that because I don't want to be in politics in that sense. But what I try to say, Chathuranga, we are there to help you. We are there to help your government. We even if you have to come to power one day, there has to be a prosperous country. We, as he said, that he has gone up to Gobal, we want to go to Chathuranga.
This forum to
now for
figure
us
out
to go to
what are the 1, 2, 3 things we should do.
So on your,
Let's-
on your 50th State of the Nation, there are disagreements, but I found something where we all agree. Policy consistency, right?
Yeah.
Policy consistency.
Right? Okay, I'll bring the monetary consistency because I am the savior of all of yours, but it's sad that I am getting cornered. Because, okay, let's
Yeah, we don't like you.
that's good. That's a democracy. Okay, let's understand what's monetary consistency. Either you have to have fixed exchange rate. Exchange rate can't deviate too much. You need to have at least constant interest rate. Or else you can't, either you can keep both and you have another factor which is the reserves.
Exchange rate, can I ask you, can you fix it or it's a supply and
If you
demand
want,
issue?
you can fix it.
You can.
No, but do you have
You
to
can.
do you have to fix it? It is a good thing
No,
for the
exactly.
economy.
That's what I'm coming for.
No, but
That's-
it's a good,
I mean,
it's a
look
good
at
that's
thing.
what I'm coming for.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm coming for. That's what I'm coming for. So the monetary consistency, that's the important thing. That's for Bhanuka, for Dilith, everyone, monetary consistency is important. So for that, and you have inflation on the other side. Can you keep inflation, interest rate, exchange rate, all three stable? Can you?
You're asking me.
No, I'm asking everyone.
No, I can answer that question.
I'll come to that. I'll have the answer. So let's go back on, since Dilith spoke about the practicality, let's go to practicality. With COVID, and also everyone said it's a supply side issue. During COVID, we banned all imports. All imports, no imports. I mean, only the essentials, right? So then how come the inflation went for 60% if it's imported driven? Because imports were all banned. All banned.
Not the essentials.
Not the essentials.
Essentials are not bad.
No,
Come
not
on.
essentials.
Even Dilith, okay. Let me
Even
speak.
there,
Let me
it was
speak.
21
Let him finish.
It was
Even the
18 to
turmeric
22
was
million.
banned. Right? Only turmeric, even vehicles
most
were
of it,
banned.
most
Most
of
of the
it,
imports
most
were
of it.
banned. It was only fuel.
Gold,
Fuel,
everything.
everything was banned. Even the essential medicine was banned. Not banned in the sense we did not have the foreign exchange. Exchange rate went from 180 to 360. How come?
But
Dananath, it is, I think, technically
that
wrong.
was
Why technically?
Well, let me explain.
That
I mean,
was
let me
by
ask you
opening
this.
up the
Not to even explain. Dananath, can I just ask you one question? Now, actually, to my practical knowledge, I may be wrong. I don't think imports were banned. I mean, we had apples, we had grapes, we had we had all the we had milk powder, we had milk powder, we had dal, we had onions, we had
we
sprats.
didn't have a lot of.
Is it
But
fully banned.
Garanath, one small disturbance.
Not during COVID, not during
just
when the country was closed.
Can I isn't an extraordinary situation? We can't
No,
take that as a,
exactly.
because
That's what I'm
COVID
saying.
was
It was an
it's not a normal
extraordinary
situation for a country.
No,
no?
he is asking,
No,
taking example.
It was
No, but
an
that
extraordinary
when
situation.
there's no cash flow and then the
I
country
agree.
stuck.
I agree. That's my problem. That's the problem that I'm raising. It was an extraordinary situation. I agree with
Yes.
that. My point was, if it was so, I mean, if the imports were that cornered or banned and there were restrictions, not as bans, you have to have a cash deposit when you were imposing at 100%. So you have been restricting
But
either
Garanath,
of it.
even local production was hampered. no?
Let me finish. So everything had a restriction. But how come then the currency collapsed? then you have the answer if you look at the money printed by the central bank, which is the indication of the treasury bill and the bond stocks of the central bank, which was multiplied by about 6 times during the same time. The thing is, Dilith, when you have excess rupee supply, you are going to spend it on imports whether you like it or not. Because imagine your studio. This has a lot of import component. These cameras, this technology is imported. But you are doing a local manufacturing, you are doing a value addition, which you can generate a revenue. But there's import component when you have excess money supply. And to do that, you have to have monetary stability. That's it. That's why it's said, stability is not everything. But without stability, everything is nothing. And that's exactly what we went through. And that's why it's important, central bank independence, you can debate on the degree of independence. But without keeping inflation stable, you are asking trouble for yourself. Because you are, next time, remember there was a time that the inflation went up, that the quotations were only valid for 2 days. Because the prices were escalating. People like Bhanuka will be in trouble when he was going to price for on his projects. So monetary stability is same as policy consistency. But the challenge is this is a little bit complicated.
Just before we go in for a break, I want to go to a parliamentarian, Senasinghe.
I agree on this. I think a lot of debates, a lot of technical points. Can we ask, actually, the Chathuranga also asked a very important question. What are the 3 things? If you get into the basics, it's easy. We're talking about an extraordinary situation. You're talking about corona, then you're talking about a collapse which we have never encountered in the history of Sri Lanka. So immaterial of those situations. In a normal situation, this is not the most normal situation.
Even now.
Yeah.
Now government is doing something. What additionally government can do?
I will actually not get into a political debate because I was also in a government, because I can see you all are very critical of these people, also very smart. No, I was actually fortunate to be in that committee on that day, and when you talk to them, they just like you, they also want the best for the country, and they take decisions thinking of the country. They don't have any personal agenda there. No. So we were in a very bad situation, no, whether we like it or not. For us to speak like this also, for the country to come to this situation, I don't know who did it. Somebody, some people, the officials, they all brought. We take it as granted, no, when we say what have they done, the monetary policy, the fiscal policy. Okay, we are in now a better situation than we were before. From this consistency, we won't get what you're talking about. So let's get to that. Because we don't have a national policy on a lot of things. And when we come into power, we'll chuck out all what they have done. So we will come out with a new plan. Dilith, when he comes to power, he will come with a new plan. So our country is so small, and we change plans every the minister changes, the new minister comes, he changes the whole thing. I was the minister, and after my tenure, the next minister changes the whole policy. So how can we now, countries like India, they have a consistent policy. So it's very important. So how do we know? No point.
Secretaries.
Yeah, secretaries, the bureaucracy decides. So no point us, you're saying the very critical of the central bank, and when you talk to them, and we asked a question, we were very actually sensitive about your problem. We asked them, can you? So his answer to me was, we are also concerned, we know that they are also struggling, but 50-60% of the country, the poor are struggling even in a very worse situation. So how are you going to accommodate them? So they are talking about the moratorium and cutting off the debt. I asked them, can we? They are paid a lot.
It's the interest that they.
Yeah, it's the interest. Can you take off interest? Can you take off the interest?
Yeah.
So we asked, can the government? Can you? So the central bank said, we don't have power to decide on that.
Influence the banks.
Influence the banks. So then we asked, can you at least give a guideline to the government so that help the government for them to take the decision, which is not easy, catch 26 situation. So let's agree how to get this stable national policy. So you might talk, you might give ideas, but practically how can we do that? That's
exactly.
number 1. So number 1, 2, 3, and then I think you have to talk about your cutting off the the interest.
No, mainly
But before
Dananath,
that, Tanya, apparently our sponsors are waiting in order to get their word in during the live program, because we have to go for a break. I'm in conversation because with a very lively panel. This is exactly what I wanted. I should have done this more often rather than,
You're hardly talking. No, you're hardly talking. Everybody is butting in.
I am enjoying this. I'm really enjoying this.
These panels every month
Yeah, it's important
to
actually.
discuss about policy, I think that's ideal.
Ideal,
You can
absolutely,
implement.
Minister. Absolutely. Let's take a short commercial break. This is our 50th episode special of State of the Nation. We'll be right back with this lively discussion. Stick around. Welcome back, everyone, to our 50th special presentation of State of the Nation. We are in discussion with Minister Chathuranga Abeysinghe, Dananath Fernando, Parliamentarian Dilith Jayaweera, Dr. Kenneth Zilwa, Bhanuka Harishchandra, Tanya Abeysinghe, Dr. Kavinda Jayawardena, a parliamentarian himself as well, and also a parliamentarian, Sujeewa Senasinghe. As you all just witnessed, a lot of lively discussion with regard to policy and then practicality. Now, one, I was very silent, and most of you all who watch this program knows I'm not that silent. But what I saw was a mismatch between practicality and policy. Not even a mismatch, it is a missing link between how from this end of this particular conversation are we to get to that end and then back to the people. Because whatever said and done, you're all politicians, Mr. Dilith, Parliamentarian, Senasinghe, Minister, Parliamentarian, Jayawardena, you've been on the ground, you've been talking to people, you know what kind of problems that they come up with on a daily basis, saying this and that, these kinds of really abysmal amount of poverty that exists in our country. But then again, on this side of things, we seems to be talking as if we already have the solutions. Where is this mismatch? Because what we are trying to figure it out is how can we get this knowledge, to convert it into a practicality of it, and then pass it on to the people, because at the end of the day, it is the Sri Lankan, the 22 million people who are here, not just the 1%, so to speak. Let me come to Bhanuka. Bhanuka, you are in an industry which is claiming to be one of the key industries where Sri Lanka can bring into this country and look towards investment and thrive through that. Even yesterday, I was having a conversation with an individual of one of the big tech firms here in Sri Lanka, but that's the sad part about it. They're not serving the local market, they're always serving the global market, and the mother companies are not Sri Lankan based, but basically owned by other countries, and whatever our people generate, it all goes out there into those particular countries, the profitability, the margins of it. So how are we to translate that? And you have been basically, running a tech firm, and you basically, the minister also was asking, what kind of support that you need from the government, what are the areas, A, B, C, D, clearly say, so instead of going with this or all those theoretical type of things. In your opinion, what do you see the mismatch of that is?
Look, I think eventually all things really do boil to consistency and stability, right? From an industry's point of view, a couple of points there. One, I don't think, and this is the controversial part, I don't think technology as an industry is enough to drive $15-20 billion to the Sri Lankan economy. I think it will drive a lot more than it is driving today. But we need to understand 99% of the technology work that Sri Lanka does is in the form of services, us included. We have, if we look at our revenues, 90% of our revenues are tied to labor, 10% is intellectual property. That labor pool, at least, the business that we are in, it's also incorporated outside. We've raised investment outside of the country to do that because our investors were too afraid of putting money in the country. We had moments in time where they followed the right protocol, open up the IIA account, set up businesses here, and when they have to make payroll to employees outside of the country, the bank goes, oh, we can't do that because the policy around sending foreign currency outside is now different. So in those scenarios, Sri Lanka will never build intellectual property within Sri Lanka in the form of technology. Because there's no benefit in doing that. I might as well set up a company in any part of the world, have the workforce here, have the intellectual property parked outside, get the governance and the protection and the stability of the country outside while still benefiting. So there is no rational argument to say we will build technology from a licensing and an intellectual property point of view. That'll never happen. So the only form of revenue driving Sri Lanka will get from a technology perspective is in the labor market. Right now, today, if you look at a standard technology consulting firm or a KPO, BPO, whatever, majority of that revenue does come to
Is it through taxation or is it really?
So from a current account perspective, we have 400 people that we employ. 70% of my cost base is labor. So even though the intellectual property is parked outside, the salaries are hitting personal foreign currency accounts of the 400 employees. So that is money that is hitting the balance sheet every single month. And 30% of that remaining is other overheads. So on the margin, we make 20%, 30% net margin. From that, 50% of the shareholders are Sri Lankan. So that money also comes back. And a very small amount of the money leaves the country. The reason why technology businesses, these BPOs and all of these companies are incorporating...
If that is the case, Bhanuka, then why are you continuously saying that we might not, this industry cannot pull that heavy weight that we are hoping that it could?
But why would I have an intellectual property product today? We are incorporated in the US because when we talk about an exit at some point, it's a lot easier for me to sell to a company in the US as an LLC than as a private limited company. What benefit is there for me to incorporate in Sri Lanka? Because the product that is created is by nature intangible. So I have all these benefits of incorporating it in the US, in Singapore, in UAE, in any part of the world. And if I do that in Sri Lanka, firstly, the taxation is quite strong. There's no benefit, there's no exit potential, liquidity is tight. Investors discount valuation based on risk. All of these multiple things happen. So even from the kind of the service sector for technology, we can't grow a service economy. Majority of the service sector economy in Sri Lanka in technology is driven through freelancers. People don't talk about it, people don't know about it, but that's where bulk of that dollar denominated revenue comes from. It's not from companies like ours, it's from individuals that work all around the world. That is what is the key driver.
So, Minister, let's answer that question. Yeah, he's saying basically it is so easy for him to do a business out there than to do it here. This is a Sri Lankan guy, a Sri Lankan entrepreneur, saying that I don't want to do it here. It's so cumbersome to do it here. I want to do it outside.
I'll take one simple example, not on IT. If you want to treat a sole proprietorship, you need 12 registrations on the ground, and it's not happening, right? So similarly, these things are identified, and we are driving for a 5 billion digital economy. So when you say digital economy is 15 billion, but services and IP 5 billion. So the unlocking process is what's currently taking place one by one. We have a solid team there. We are negotiating with the industry. There's a monthly meeting that happens through Dr. Hans when we want, because there are some basics we need to get through. Those are the ones currently happening. But if you look at our policy book and where we want to get to, all these things to be unlocked. Digital nomads has to happen here, and we are lobbying from either side to ensure those policies are adopted. But government has a step-by-step process to go. It's going to get there. That is why we have strong people in different sectors. I am driving Ministry of Industries, and around me there is an industrial policy which is not we built. That was done before our government. So we are reviewing it, and it's going to come in. There's an anti-dumping bill that has been not implemented for the last 4 years. We are bringing it this year. There's a tariff policy that you guys have worked tirelessly, and it has not happened thus far. We are bringing it this year. So these things are these are the changes, the policy changes that's going to come. For the industrialization, there has never been a policy since 1991. That is inconsistent. So we are going to make it a law this year. So that's what I'm trying to say. Even for IT and all that, there is bottlenecks. And that is why a consultative government is there. A government has a clear vision for $45 billion of exports. And if you don't unlock it, NPP will not exist anymore for sure. This government's mandate is to end corruption and bring country a run rate of $45 billion of exports. And look at coconuts, the rubber, the tea. There is no value chain analysis. There is no value chain strategy. Departments have worked in isolation. Now we are putting it together. So that's what's happening now. I think we need all your support to do it. It's just that certain things, every month you will get something new.
Quick comment on that. I think so. From a technology point of view, technology has always been looked at as this high-income labor force, right?
Yeah.
There is two very different sides of this equation that we're forgetting. One, the technology labor only exists with proper infrastructure. Okay. You need good access to internet, good access to electricity. Yeah. You need essentially people have the ability to learn and educate in English. If you have those three things, the industry will run by itself without the intervention of anyone.
So Bharu, it's a good example what Trace and Hatch is doing, right? So you have infrastructure, you gain support, and there's a space to collaborate and all those things, right? What I'm trying to say is those spaces and infrastructure is not enough in Kandy, the Gobal, the Jaffna, it's not there. So I think it's up to the government to kind of facilitate all those things to ensure that the IT folks will create those values. I think you are right.
The biggest value unlock technology can give is not the addition of labor. It is the subtraction of labor. If you look at all these government processes, let's take the company incorporation, right? We have a business that is involved in the business registration process. We've incorporated nearly 10,000 businesses over the years. We've built a front end, so entrepreneurs can go in, fill out all the systems, processes, hit submit. They can basically incorporate their company. But on the back end, it goes to a printer, someone takes a document, runs to the registrar of companies, get a signature, comes back, presses a button, so it shows the progress bar. All of this can be completely automated with a single API, right? The technology that can drive efficiency is not by protecting jobs and creating jobs, it's by removing jobs so it benefits the majority.
So Bhanuka, do you see that process last 1.5 months is happening or starting to happen, or we are stalled at it?
I don't see, so from a consumer's point of view of government technology, I don't see. We hold conferences, we fly clients in, we do all of these things, the visa process, entering
everything,
everything is a mess.
It's a mess.
Tanya, you've been very silent.
Yeah, I've been silent because there's too many guys and I think I'm being the only lady getting a chance.
Behaving.
So the realistic, I was going to touch on the central bank issue. Now, if you were to really take the SMV issue, now what central bank will, our economy is a very volatile economy. But with the unprecedented decisions they took, now just imagine, now we were, what the central bank said was, it was a total mismanagement of the funds that we had that led us to this. It is never the case. Now, if you were to really take the MPL level, in 2019, our MPL level was only 680 billion. And in 22, when Corona hit and when the country was just before calling up bankruptcy, it was still on 909 billion. But when the central bank, with the unprecedented decision to suppress the economy to control the inflation, it went up to 1.3 trillion. So was it our mistake or was it the mistake by the government? So the government is a central bank. So the decision that they took led us to the crisis what we are today. It's not us who led ourselves into that. So then it is the government who should intervene at the moment in putting a cap to the central bank, in taking up this. And mind you, I will call even the interest rates. The interest rates were so crazy. When the government called before bankruptcy, it was only from 9%. We took loans at 9%. Some took loans at 8%. But in April 2022, when it was 12%, within a period of 6 months, it went up to 38%. I have paid taking to pay salaries. I have taken not the OD, TODs at 38% just to pay salaries. Now taking a TOD at 38% to say pay salaries. When our taxes are so high, our utilities were 300% more than. The dollar, what we imported at 180 went up to 380. So how are we supposed to sustain ourselves? So is it our mistake, or is it the mistake of the central bank unprecedentedly taking decision, and when the central bank was urging to say that we got to protect the banks? Is it the bank, the country, or the people in the country is the country?
Quickly intervene. I think Tanya is proving my point. Central bank created the inflation, and the only tool that they had to brought it down was the increasing the interest rate. So Tanya is getting a double knock on that. So that's what I said. Please, for God's sake, do not print money excessively, and that's what happened to Tanya. Interest rate went up to 60%.
It's nothing to do with
Just give me,
it's nothing to
we'll
say
come to that. Parliamentarian, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, Dananath, you're totally wrong. Before the dollar was let out.
Correct this, because this is a myth he's talking about.
No, we won't go into details like
Tanya, I think he wants to say something.
No, before the dollar was floated, the last meeting we had with the then finance minister, Basil, we argued with him. I asked him, why are you floating the dollar? You know what he told me? I mean, floating the dollar was creating a monster. Absolutely. You don't understand the money, how many dollars are in the black market. And if you have the money, if you have the rupee, you will go to the black market. I mean, control is suppressing the economy, is not controlling.
Just give me 1 second.
Totally
1 second. 1
if
second.
you're a business person, you'll never do that.
With that tone, I don't know whether I should say anything now. At her mercy, but I feel, because I have met them a couple of times and I have been with Chathuranga also, and I want to be in the middle. Easy to criticize. We were in a very bad situation, bankrupt country. So these decisions are not easy. So whatever decisions these officials have taken, they have brought us to as you said, indicators are okay. So they don't come automatically, no. So they had to take certain decisions. When you find a solution in one area, somebody suffers. So they suffered. So actually, to be fair by him, he asked that question in that committee. I'm not a member of that committee, but I was seated. So I asked the same question. How are we going to help them? Because they kind of brought us back to normal. The country actually, SMEs, they paid 30%.
We kept alive.
Then the central bank governor and the officials, they asked the question, who's going to pay for it? If we give them a sort of a rebate on the interest, it's the depositors who are going to pay for it. So how are we going to balance it?
He asked very simply whether the depositors has to pay for the pain, or the taxpayers has to pay for
somebody has to pay for it. So then I said
one is that if the bank is giving the concession, then it's the depositor. If the government is giving the concession, it's a taxpayer. So the central bank governor's question was, who's going to take it?
So I had one question. Our banks, to my knowledge, Dilith might correct me if I'm wrong, asset rich. Our banks are asset rich because I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
rich.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
Very
true. Because they have assets.
Parat and all that, they sell these properties for a very, very minimal amount. From my legal background, the knowledge I have, I'm not sure. I think I have to be fair by the banks. So I said, aren't the banks asset rich? They have to be asset rich also. That's why Sri Lanka is also actually, when we had the credit crisis all over the world, we didn't fall because the banks were asset rich. So he said, they are not asset rich, they sell for the market price, the property, which is not true. So how can we help them? Because a couple of companies, like top companies, I know they were paying 50 million interest rate, they end up paying 150 million. It's impossible. It's easy for us to pass the buck on to somebody if I had to pay. So where are we going to be? We can't be so critical. These policies, these people also take policies. There's a knowledgeable crowd when they take these policy decisions. and they have taken the decision, and we are overall, everybody agree that from the dark
Sujeeva,
period, we are somewhere.
Just stop you for a second.
Yes, sure.
Tanya, will you give me just 2 seconds?
I have a
that you would like
solution to what you.
hear this beautiful voice. But no, I mean, see, at the end of the day, our viewers also should be able to take something out of this discussion. Let me just ask you this question, all of you. Now, these are a lot of questions. As you can see, or a viewer might get completely confused, and it is obviously not, I think, Johnny's intention. So, where does the answer lie? Where does the answer lie? I mean, with my little bit of academic knowledge and background, and more of practical knowledge, I think what we lack here is that grand strategy, the grand plan, what is the central idea within which that we are going to sort of address these issues. So if you take one by one, Tanya has an issue, my good friend Dananath has many issues, Bhanuka has like more global, international tech issues, Kenneth also will have, Sujeewa has some simpler issues which probably can be solved very easily. Minister, I mean, I really appreciate, I mean, honestly, I must say that, you try hard. But the point is, see, any country, any organization, or a family even, if you don't have a central strategy, you can, one thing, you have a strategy. Second thing, that everyone has to know that there is a strategy, this is a strategy. Then every one of us should know that we are on strategy. Then every one of us should have, okay, there are like timelines, deadlines, we are meeting them, we are happy. I mean, otherwise, we are one big bunch of unhappy people.
Ideas every day.
They are talking problems. See, I mean, honestly, Chathuranga, sometimes when these people invite me for so-called TV debates, I say I don't want to participate because I don't want to talk about problems. I want to talk about a solution.
So Mr. Dilith, you basically asked that question. And please, if anybody has...
Yes, I have...
No, I'm just, let me just say in two...
I have the solution
two lines to say, if you look at the rest of the world, and we take many examples, Bhanuka, now you see the so-called developed world, and you see that development, countries with policy, with the policy consistency and so on. Now, what do they have which we don't have?
Policy.
Policies.
No, actually, they have independence.
No,
they have independence.
No, actually, Chathuranga, I think it's for us to think deep. I think they all possess a grand strategy. These nations possess a grand strategy.
Did the bureaucracy in those countries?
No, bureaucracy or otherwise.
No, they are very strong.
If you have a grand strategy, the things fall in line, then you can get things aligned. Here, when you don't have a grand strategy for you to compare with your so-called economic theories, I'm not being, I'm being nice. So you got to, okay, you have to compare that. Or
progress?
With what do you compare? I mean, we are saying Chathuranga and this government is doing jack shit. They are not doing well. They are useless. Against what? Right? There is no plan to compare that with. Had we had a plan, okay, this nation agrees that our growth plan is on this strategy. Whether we agree or not, it's a political thing maybe. Then more people agree, less people don't agree. We call it democracy. Here we have nothing. Now, Chathuranga, it's this food for thought. because I am, as I always say, I am there to support this government wherever possible. Now, we have to think. And the last thing that I want to say, at the end of the day, your basically stakeholders ranging from all these people up to the farmer, 22 million people have to be convinced that there is something happening. And that conviction will drive a motivated nation.
Before that, I really want to go to Dr. Kavinda Jayawardena, being very silent and very patient, and give him a chance to actually, give his ideas.
Kavinda is celebrating Valentine's Day today. Let him be. Don't disturb him.
Getting late to the event tonight. So no, actually, Mahieash, I think we came to a good point where we need to find solutions. That's where I started also. So, to drive the economy, we need to figure out what are the sectors, what's important. Now, when we talk about SMEs, one of the main sectors that we could talk about is tourism. Now, in Sri Lanka, we probably making around $6 billion per year, whereas when you compare with Thailand, it's around, sorry?
Yeah, then 3.5
yeah.
Used to.
Yeah. So they have gone up to around 16 billion, 20 billion per year. So but when we talk about our tourism sector, we don't get high-end spenders, right? When you talk about agriculture, we don't have a strategy, just like how Dilith said. We don't have a mid-term, short-term, and a long-term strategy. We are not educating our farmers. We are not providing them with new technology. So we are just sitting in the same place, same boat, right? And thinking that our country will thrive, right? Talk about fishermen. Now, I'm representing Nigambo, my electorate.
Yeah.
We are fishing the same way how we used to do it traditionally, right? So I would like to know what's the government's plan, right? If you are talking about bringing more investors, more revenue to the country, we would want to know answers, because so many years these people have lived the same way. As we discussed, the income is the same or rather reduced, right? Expenditure has gone up, but we don't have a driving force with technology, with new strategies, new investments, new plans. So I think that's what we should talk about.
Can I
let me come to
on this piece?
Yes.
Quickly. So I think the grand strategy is quite clear. I think it's just that some might not hear when we say, because we say it. I think this is a good debate and we can keep talking about it. We are very clear the path we are going to take is the path that India, South Korea and Vietnam took. There's a very strong government planning and where the country should lead to, which industries government should thrive, the country should thrive, and how the government would support. How would the government bring down the cost of manufacturing, cost of inputs, where the government will play a key stakeholders. That is where the SOEs will come into play. And entire economy will be run by private sector in terms of doing commodities, right? And when it comes to the local investment.
So the government is moving towards policy and
so it's a very clear policy. Government will intervene in essential goods and manufacturing inputs.
So can I just ask you one question?
Yeah.
Now you say you have a grand strategy.
Yeah.
Now if I am to learn about your grand strategy, how would I?
So I think the thing
how
is,
we are from,
right.
I mean, is there a document?
So the current document, you said it's not worth it, no? The book that we have written.
It doesn't have a strategy.
Yeah. So the thing.
It's a theory.
It's a policy, right? So
it's
then
like
each of the ministries will have its clear goal plan with the budget, first year of the strategy.
So which is, are you presenting it on Monday?
Okay.
Monday,
so we
right?
can expect that.
Yeah. So the thing is, Dilith, now for example, I'll give you one example from my ministry. We brought in all the institutions which were all scattered, brought it in together for one purpose.
I noticed that, yes. It's a good thing.
Now, each of these institutions will have their year plan, which we have crafted. Salusala will have its plan, Laksala will have. Obviously, you guys can help enormously there. Even today, I spoke with the BCC Lanka, the coconut oil related business. They have amazing plan. Their sales are going up like nothing. So what I'm trying to say is each of these institutions, and even as a ministry, that is the plan that is underpinned by the budget that we have given. Right? Obviously, we did not consult outside while we are putting that in. But obviously, there's a year and there's a game plan that all of you can contribute.
So we can expect at the next budget that you
which
will
is on
present
Monday. Yes. For example, what is our GDP plan? What is our tourism is going to be? Agri exports, how much it's going to be and how it's going to come? How our fisheries will come into play? So how our education will reform?
That's brilliant.
Yeah?
If you can expect that to be placed.
I think you touched on a really wonderful point. You said that you have a strategy, you have a plan, but however the communication, what you were trying to communicate may not have been heard.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think the bigger issue that we see from, at least from my point of view, from the government, is that the communication is very opaque. So I'll give an example, right? And this has been something that has been very controversial over the time, which is the vehicle imports. Vehicle imports, is it coming? Is it not coming? Why are we curtailing it? Should we curtail it? Do we have the balance to support the import? Yeah. Should we be taxing it? And if you look at the populace's response to that, it has been very erratic because the policies and the expectations have not been kind of geared. Like even now, the objective is to have this very specific taxation. And you say, okay, we are going to charge this 20% surcharge because we want to curtail imports at the moment with the ability to relax it. Now, if the government is able to communicate it to a way saying, okay, right now, we do not have the funds to bring in billions of vehicles. And I think everyone understands that. However, the expectation is with our GDP targets, with our revenue growth targets, we would like the surcharge to go from 20% this year, 15% next year, so that over the next 5 years, taxes should be going down over this period of time. The permit holders will be treated this way, these people will be treated this way.
It's not holistic, you're right. Yes.
And I don't think people, and the problem with people is they don't have the same level of context and insight and whatever information is happening behind the scenes that you are privy to.
Yeah.
We are looking at the information that is carried out to places like all of you guys that you are one of the biggest news media outlets, and you carry information to the public. The public does not have any context as to what is going on. And it is
I want to provide a little bit of context on that, and that is what I just saw in this entire discussion, is the fact that there is a mismatch. When the theoretical aspect of things comes into play, it is not explained like from Colombo to Gobal. It is not being told to the common man, this is the reason your prices are high and this is what we have to do A, B, C, D in order to come down. That has to happen from the government.
I understand.
And it is nothing to do with your government per se. This we have seen from 2015 onwards, 2015 government, 2019 government, abysmal amount of communication to the people because policies happen. For a good example, I myself inquired from the PMI, the PMD of the previous administration, which was when President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's our country was going through that entire phase. We were being told that apparently he's working inside, trying to call this country, that country in order to get some dollars in and this and that. Not communicated to the people. The people have no clue. The people were right outside his gate asking for some kind of solution. So that particular aspect, I completely agree, but making it a little bit more understanding because, Bhanuka, out of the 22 million people, I think the majority of the people does not have finance literacy. What you three speak about, or most of you all speak about, they don't have no clue what are these guys actually talking about. So in order to make it translated into a point where they can, is basically what we ask. I really need to apologize to all of you all. We're running out of time, so I'm going all around the panel and asking for your final comments. So, Dr. Kenneth, why don't you kick off?
Thank you, Mahieash. I think it's a very a great point that we have come to in terms of what is our GDP focus. Now, Chathuranga very correctly said, industrialization is the way forward. And I totally agree, looking at all the Southeast Asian countries, how they manage their economy, including Vietnam. Vietnam, if you look at the research out there, very categorically say that the government intervention and government-led support enable them to reach their export targets. So if you take the vehicle as GDP, the vehicle's 4 tires are the policy frameworks. If you want your vehicle to travel down a particular path and achieve a particular destination in terms of GDP revenue, you have to have your fiscal policy, you have to have your monetary policy, you need to have industrial policy, and you need to have an export strategy policy. If you don't have those 4 wheels turning in the same direction, you're not going to get to that destination. And I think which Chathuranga is now saying is very important, because they seem to be getting that equation right. So I think if you can look at that, because the elephant in the room is our trade deficit. From 2014 to 2023, $109 billion have gone out of this country. So we can't afford that anymore. We have to internalize our savings. From a pure balance sheet point of view, you need to internalize. If you internalize, your national savings increase. If you increase your national savings, your debt stock will come down. If you increase that and internalize through agriculture, through what Bhanuka and them are doing, through various industries where we are spending our trade, our hard-earned money through our current account, we are subsidizing our trade account. That is services which Bhanuka brings, the remittances that we get in our secondary account, those are used to subsidize the trade deficit. That's where we are going wrong. That is the core issue. And then when that is not sufficient, we go and borrow. And that leads us into a debt spiral, because you depreciate the currency. That's what they tell you. To curtail your economy, you have to have a shock. Then you save foreign exchange. It's very sweetly put in this IMF wording. They say to accumulate reserves. So everyone thinks that's the best way, but that is the worst, because you're shrinking industry, you're depriving capital formation, you're putting people on the street, and you're actually jacking up your cost of debt. Because your cost of debt is in a dollar balance sheet. Your revenue is your rupee balance sheet. So they have to service your debt stock is up. So you have to be very careful about these particular nuances that are being pushed by lack of data. Secondly, the last point before I go to Dananath, there is no relevance in money stock. You look at what the RBI has written in, this is a controversial subject, because you must understand what is driving inflation. If you take world GDP, world excess money stock, put it on a chart, ask Dananath to do it and show it to every one of us. See where the world money stock, excess money stock, I hope he knows the definition of excess money stock, that is money stock M2 minus your GDP number, right? Divide that by your debt stock. Look at that, that's your excess money stock. Look at that against inflation. It has come down from 2020, from 2002. Sri Lanka is no different. There is no correlation. How money gets into the system and how inflation comes about is when you move the anchor, your key anchor is your exchange rate. As you increase your exchange rate, the credit cost or the credit facilities have to go up. And when your credit facilities go up, bank has to generate it from its reserves money. When the bank doesn't have reserve money, it goes to the central bank. Central bank has to pump money, otherwise there's a liquidity shortfall in the system. That's why you get a liquidity deficit in the market. To facilitate that liquidity, central bank puts in money. So the sequence is not money first. It's a result of external shocks driving money supply. If you don't increase Tanya's working capital and Dilith's working capital, how is you going to run your business? You can't. It's tied to that. So this myth has to be debunked. Look at what the RBI said. Look at the data. Look at Sri Lankan data. I dare you to do that. And then come we'll have a chat.
Okay. Dananath, I want to your final thoughts on that. Also the homework that you have.
Sure. Final round, I would like to bring for solutions, but I have done the data. I think you can plot the money stock increase from 2020 to 2022 versus inflation. Correlation is not causation. Causation is on the money supply. I stand on that. But I would like to bring on the solution side, and I would like to bring with what Bhanuka said at the beginning. The best help the government could do is not intervening there. So to do that, do everything which is not intervening the entrepreneurs like Bhanuka and Tanya. And I stand for the micro and small enterprises. What we need to do is take the risk for them to invest. And to do that, I think government has proposed a plan on collateral law, collateral free. I don't know the mechanism of it, but I think that what the government can do is take the risk out and do everything which is intervening the entrepreneurs. That is basically, I think the government has taken a digitization approach, and the GovPay, which is, I think, excellent decisions in the right direction, which will bring down, but I think more communication, that is a separate part. But That's first thing that we need to do. Second thing is, I think we all agree, everyone spoke about it, the Vietnam story, the South Korea story. Again, what they did was providing the factor markets right. Give the land rights, invest in the budget maybe on Bimsavir to clear and have the industrial zones, because now the president himself said there are about 82 red tapes, licenses that has to be taken, that is restricting people like Bhanuka and Dilith and everyone. So remove those barriers, country will grow. But I stand on my, I bet my last dollar, monetary stability is equivalently important as policy consistency. Do not cross that line. Do not cross that line, because we will be having the same conversation. In 5 years' time, I told this on the same channel with Chathuranga in 2020. And I used the example of the same vehicle. I said, if your wheels are not fixed right, if you're accelerating too much, my friend, you're heading to an accident. That's what
Tanya?
Yes. Now, I have solutions. That's what Chathuranga wants. First thing, for the loans that has been taken. Why we are asking, the bank has already given us the funding. And the central bank keeps saying, we need to protect the bank and we need to protect the investors. But what I'm saying is the funding is already given. And these loans were sometime taken for 5 years. 3 years of these loans were already paid. Any bank, first thing, it's not the capital they reduce, it is the interest. So if that acquired 3 years means maybe the loan was given at 9%. If they acquired the interest at 36%, they have already collected the given fund plus the interest what they really require. So they can cut off. The other thing is cut off the interest component and waive off the interest component totally.
Who's going to pay for it?
Because we have already paid for it.
I know, I'm asking you, you're giving a solution, no?
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. It is just on papers, Sujeeva. Now, because the banks are having property, that's just on paper. By causing the Paratha law to be executed, that means you're creating another calamity in the country. But if you do waive off, a lot of people have done that. Private companies have done it. Waiving off, and yeah, you can. Capital, because you already paid. And the other thing, yeah. No, one. Yeah. The next thing is.
You don't agree. The banks don't agree.
No, banks have to agree. That's where the government intervenes. And the other thing is, we requested for every bank, if the government cannot have development banks, the bank should have a development division, where the government intervenes through the central bank in facilitating, because we don't have the working capital, because we are not protected. Our industries are not protected. Our policies are so fragile that anybody can. The black market rules the industry. So that is where it has gone wrong. By doing that, we have invested. Any business has invested through the black market or the fragile system. There are so many unwanted things coming into the country where the industries are not protected. So these are very minimum things where it's very open there in the market. I mean, you take any industry, shoe industry to the textile industry, these can be monitored properly and proper policies can be put in. So if these things are bought in.
Kind on that poor guy, newly married Bhanuka is waiting.
Exactly.
Are you see that on his face?
No,
He's desperate.
He might not survive.
No.
No, these are basic things.
Yes, I understand. Bhanuka, before I get to the politicians, very quickly, what is your final word?
Look, I think I've communicated my thing as many times as I can. The only thing I would like to echo Dananath's sentiment. I hope this doesn't become a forum that is used to remove the powers of the central bank to then fix the currency, and we will be in a completely different mess later on. I hope that's not the case.
Dilith?
Let me put it this way. I think I like this discussion, of course, but again, I must say that I am coming back to this strategy business, because I just don't understand, without a strategy, a way forward. It has to be a grand national strategy, and my friend Chathuranga, with 100% good heart, I want to tell you, today's, if you look at, as Bhanuka said, communication, national narrative is nowhere close to any growth trajectory or a direction. You are today talking about, if you take the consumption of their voice, media voice, as a percentage, 90% negative content, and they I'm sorry to say that in a communications point of view. I'm not saying it is in fact, yeah. I'm saying if you are to align people, you know, none of this can happen, even if you get your, you know, interest-free, whatever, you got to work with your workforce. And if they are in a negative mindset, you can't, even in the hospitality industry or whatever. See, national narrative has to be shifted to a positive note from these discussions of now see, I know that, you know, this is in fact what I was going to say in the parliament before I got a bit disturbed. However, what I was going to say, you know, you come to power, you adopt various tactics. Brands do that, you know, to put the product on the shelf. Once the product comes on the shelf, push the product from the shelf, you adopt a different strategy. And you communicate that. Here what I say is, yes, I mean, India is the best example. I remember when Modi's campaign, which was very similar to their campaign, they came on this completely the corruption narrative. People thought that Rahul was going to be in jail, mother was going to be in jail for that, whatever the products, I mean the construction that they did or whatever. But they immediately moved out of that and came to like a national narrative changed. You know, here we are talking about, you know, apprehending people, putting them in jail, and we are now going behind the so and so. I mean, we got to do all that. I think if you give less focus in terms of national media consumption and the narrative, people will be discussing these topics. Today, even in the parliament, even in any political dialogue that you see on mainstream channels, you see these discussions. When are you going to put so and so in jail? When are you going to catch hold of this person? When are you going to, you know, we are now very quick to do all that, but not discuss this. Dananath, I am being very, very honest. I don't want you to fall genuinely, because I think you got 5 years and we got to support the way we can. Then only we can take, if at all, we will definitely take. It's a different matter. Then we take the baton and then run. I mean, you know,
we also want to retire.
So what I say is, my final thing that I want to say, now that Bhanuka has to be released immediately, I want to say,
like Dilith, I think you are. I think you are the one.
I understand the pain. So what I want to say is that, you know, we need our stakeholders to be on a positive platform and mindset. So let's all get together for that.
Parliamentarian?
And must get together and help them.
Yeah, I wish them well, but again the same, I think the criticism comes, and I had a personal, as he said, put me in jail. I had to go to Supreme Court, I had to go to Court of Appeal just to prove that my vehicle was brought from Toyota Lanka, registered by Toyota Lanka.
But Chathuranga, I didn't mean that you shouldn't put him in jail for that. I said don't give much publicity.
I'm just saying, I'm not going to touch on that. Just that I have to say I agree with him. And as they said, they don't see the optimism. I think is he a lone wolf? I'm wondering in the government, because if you take, they react to the reaction from the general public. Even the vehicles, then they say they are bringing the vehicles, and then they see the reaction, and then they reverse, then they come. And even the rice prices.
Are you talking about the government?
Yes. These simple things. I'm wondering whether they have that clarity in the government, whether everybody has that ability in the government. And when even the rice prices, you can't control it. You have to say the price is today this much. It drives on the supply and demand end of the day. Simple things like that. So if you can't focus on simple things like that, how are you going to talk about macro picture of the future of the country and these policies. And as he said, we don't see what is the growth, where are you going to get the growth, what is the manufacturing that you're going to come with. If you don't get into manufacturing, I don't think we are going to achieve, we can have plans, every government has plans. So when they come into, even Gotabaya Rajapaksa, I can remember, all these plans were there when he came in also. It's a beautiful picture, end of the day. But again, I want to say, they were talking about foreign direct investment, you need that. Tourism, maybe backpackers are coming, but still they are good. We need that. I think overall, we need to, the fisheries, the education, and SOEs. I heard that the private medical colleges, they are not going to allow private medical, I don't know what is the policy, real policy. SOEs, they say, President said, we are not in favor of privatizing them. Then he says, all of a sudden comes and says, no, we might, stock market and a little bit of liberalization. We don't know exactly. So they are also touching on the response from the general public, because they belong to a different, Chathuranga belongs to a different policy. The president comes from a different background.
Chathuranga is NPP, president is
JVP.
So it's very clear.
So what do they, the privatization, the Air Lanka is not being privatized. They hold that. And where is your policy? How do you go with the rest of the world? Open economy, less government involvement, more privatization. Privatization always drives the economy, whether you like it or not. If it's your personal, if it's a government vehicle even, you don't maintain it, and that's the crux of it. So we don't actually see the exact policy, the growth, where it's coming from, and it's kind of bleak at the moment for me.
Before I get to the Minister, Doctor, if I get your last take on this.
Yes, Mahieash, I'm also in the same shoe as Bhanuka, so I'll wrap it up quickly. In fact, I think what's important is that we have to learn from our mistakes. Previous governance, what we saw was, we ended up in bankruptcy. Our foreign reserves went almost to $200 million, and then we ended up in queues. So what we would like to know is, what's the government's plan? What's their short-term, mid-term and long-term plan? Because we cannot afford another crisis. So we have been talking about all sectors in Sri Lanka. All sectors are important, not only one sector per se. All sectors are important. And everyone is still suffering. People are suffering. We can't blame the monkeys. So we have to... Every day. Yeah. So we have to come out of this, talk about rice price, talk about coconuts, talk about electricity. We have been facing these issues throughout, so we don't want these issues to be aggravated. We want results, we need solutions, and we have given the government good 3 months or 4, so I think it's time for the government to deliver.
Minister, I'll give you the final word.
Yeah, I think this is a great conversation and a lot of points brought in. I think what we are trying to fix is something that's broken. So you touch everywhere, it's going to fall, from government, legal system, to governance, to red tape, to SME issue, to the coconut issue, to electricity issue. All are outcomes of a periodic, unsystematic, unplanned, as Dilith said, non-strategic outcomes. So we are there to now put it back on track. Things are a little slow, and also I agree our communication is not that at the right level. That we have to take back. But what we are trying to do is to put things in the right place and get the public opinion also, and our strategy is quite clear. We have talked enough about why we use SOEs, what is the game plan for exports, how we are looking at essentials and food security, and how we, so the problem is that we have not discussed here today even about 100 odd cabinet decisions we took within last 2 months. That's the irony of this entire thing, because we take also news from social media and all that. Even we are highly educated and well read and all, we didn't discuss any of the cabinet decisions that was took, because that is taken for the progression of the country.
But that itself proves the fact that the government's communication methodology is the problem.
That's right, I admitted, no?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say, still people can pull up if any of those decisions were wrong. Chathuranga, this cabinet decision is wrong or something like that, but it didn't came up. But we have to get there. We have to start debating cabinet decisions. We have to start debating the budget, which 2 days from now it will be presented what our game plan is. I hope that will be clearer enough so that we can build upon that. And even for the SME side, Tanya, we have done what's possible in our guards, that we have given a breathing space, and now we are appointing a committee so that individual cases will be looked at, so that the banks will not do unjust on assets. That is something that we could do at this point with the government has brought in. So likewise, there are certain changes that are happening, and I think there is enough opportunity for all of us to work together. I'm driving entrepreneurship on the ground. We have brought all these things. If Dilith also you can get on board in the same platform, I am more than happy, because we just have to get people to get into entrepreneurship, and government's role is to unlock, as you correctly said, the locks that has been there, even import-export controls, to strategies that we have adopted in taxation, to registration processes and the IP rights, all are restrictive. We agree. So we need to unlock it, and it needs time to evaluate, it needs time to study other countries, and it will take time. But if any of you have a smarter proposal, we are always open to take it and do it fast.
Indeed, I appreciate each and every one of you for coming on the show, and it was a big panel, and I understood that it's going to be a momentous task in order to get through, but this was very vital, not because of anything else. We do discuss, we do go around the table talking about it, but coming to one particular platform and having that dialogue, disagreeing to agree and all that is very vital, so that the public also understands that it is not done in isolation, but they can also come together and actually find solutions that will benefit them. Thank you very much, Minister, Deputy Minister of Industry and Entrepreneurship, Minister Chathuranga Abeysinghe, for coming on the show. Parliamentarian Dilith Jayaweera, of course, appreciate it. Thank you very much for being here. And also Parliamentarian Sujeewa Senasinghe, appreciate you being here as well, sir. Dr. Kavinda Jayawardena, Parliamentarian from the SJB, appreciate you coming on the show. And also Dr. Kenneth Zilwa, a regular on the show. Please keep coming back. And Tanya Visundara, appreciate ma'am for being here. And of course, Bhanuka, Harishchandra, and Dananath, Fernando. Dananath is a regular here at Derana, but apparently this is the first time we managed to have a conversation with each other. Appreciate all of you for being here. I know we need more time to discuss, but like maybe the 100th one, we can have a better
a particular topic can bring. So we can talk about a particular industry or a topic.
I think that will be good.
This is a good start, but yeah.
Exactly.
Not on a Valentine's Day.
Not on Valentine's Day. Exactly. I learned the lesson there, Mr. Dilith. Well, that's all the time I have for the discussion. Let's take a short break. I'll be back with the closing. Just like the sign behind me says, 50 episodes. Now, in the grand schemes of television, it might not seem like much for any other program. It might just be another milestone. But for State of the Nation, 50 episodes is a victory, a testament, a defiance. We launched State of the Nation during a pivotal time in Sri Lanka's history back in 2022, when the whole economic crisis was brewing. A time of upheaval, change, and, well, let's be honest, a carefully curated narrative to erode the name of Sri Lanka was taking shape. The mainstream media painted a certain picture, and while parts of it may have been true, it never fully encapsulated the real complexities of this nation. It never gave all sides to the story. And we wanted to do just that. We wanted to show that different side. That's all. We weren't saying that the mainstream media was wrong. We were just saying there's more to the story, and for that, we faced a massive backlash and a massive storm. Now, by the 12th episode, I believe, the backlash was immense. We were reprimanded, silenced, and marginalized. The pressure was relentless. I even had to leave my job and simply exercising my right for expressing my views. Was it easy? No, absolutely not. But was it worth it? Absolutely yes. I've always made it clear, don't take my word as gospel truth. Do your own research, think critically, but understand that there is always a different side to any story. Even today's discussion was just true to what this program is all about and what it stands for, sharing different ideas in the same platforms. I mean, isn't that the real definition of a strong society, where different ideas and views can come and be expressed on the same stage, sparking conversation that would help further the development of our own nation? Now, as a nation, we need new ideas. We need old ideas. We need fresh ideas. And at times, we need radical ideas to completely push our nation forward. Because we, as a nation, needs to progress, not regress. Challenging the narrative is very important. Well, reaching these 50 episodes wasn't easy, but we barely made it. My human rights were violated by the very people who claim to champion human rights. My freedom of expression was curtailed by the self-proclaimed activists disguised as journalists, the so-called champions of progress, and yet all what they did, everything in their power was to silence us because we refused to fall in line. But here's the thing, we didn't break, we didn't back down, and we never will, as here we are still. And it's all thanks to you, because the only people who stood by me was you, my viewers, because you are the little warriors that once again agree only dead fish goes with the flow. And because of you, the viewers, believed in us, the importance of diverse perspectives, you are the reason we are still here and we are on air. You kept State of the Nation alive. And despite whatever the backlash, we will continue to provide you with points that's against the mainstream narrative. Talk freely and share deeply, because the real decision makers of our nation's future is you, and you need to have all the sides to the story. From the onset of this program, I've always believed that fooling the people is not the way forward, but honesty and directness is what will get us through. I mean, think about this. What kind of a society do we want to live? What should Sri Lanka be known for? Do you want to live in a state where fake journalists ask other journalists to be jailed because their mindset is so fragile to comprehend a different view, where human rights lawyers who claim to stand for everyone's human rights and then is violating the rights of expression of people because she disagrees with them by calling for the ban of their rights? Do we honestly want to live in a Sri Lanka that's blind and led by more blind people? Do we honestly want to live in a Sri Lanka that is so one-sided? This last election was a testament by the people that we still have nothing, any kind of guarantee that the current administration will deliver. Went with a different party that absolutely has no governing experience, because it was better to be with the unknown devil than to accept the known angel, because this known angel has fooled the people more than once. Sri Lanka is learning. And that society needs different views and prospects, a willpower to create a society where all of us can live freely and be free to be successful. So we barely managed to get to 50. That's because you stood by us, and also because this organization, the Derana Media Network, especially led by individuals like Dilith Jayaweera, who was our former chairman and now turned politician. We're still trying to figure out the formula as to why he became a politician. Bhanuka, one of the strongest women I've encountered in my life, another individual who hates to go with the flow. And of course, Madhava Madhavala, our very brave CEO, who through trials and tribulations stood up for what's right. They all believe that media's role is to create a platform to share different views, different opinions, so you, the viewer, can make the choice. If it wasn't for them, this show would have never reached the success it has. I also want to thank my very own staff, past and present, especially individuals like my past producers, Lochan Ashirwad, who actually is one of the best producers that we had, and research support from individuals like Kavinda de Silva, a very short period of time, but did a lot of things. And of course, Dananath, and also to the new ones, Anuradha Wickramasinghe, big, bold, and in your face. Individuals like Kasun Malala, Nikini Shakya, Vinuta Varnasuriya, who's our producer, Nelika Fernando, the graphic designer, who have done all these beautiful graphics, not only in this program, but all the programs on this channel. And of course, Samira Udeshika, one of my right-hand individuals who have supported right throughout. And then the very new ones who've just come on board to take the hard task, like Mahieash Silva, who you saw today, and of course, Yasiruvithana. The camera team on the flow, even the ones who helped us today, and also every single person who have been there throughout. The technical teams, and of course, all the guests who came on the show since the day we started. Thank you for your unending support, and thank you for believing in difference. And more importantly, you, our viewer, thank you. Thank you for believing in us. Thank you for challenging the status quo. And thank you for being the little warriors of truth, because together we can change the world and build a better state for our nation. Well, that's it from all of us here at State of the Nation for tonight. Once again, my sincere appreciation to you, our viewers. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back again on the